In the Philippines, a constitutional crisis has erupted, and it's so serious that it threatens to break the country apart. A former president is up in arms. He is taking on his own political ally. We're talking about Rodrigo Duterte. He's on the war path against the current president. Listen to this.
When I was the mayor, the Drug Enforcement Office showed me a list. Your name was there, but I don't want to expose you because you're a friend. We know each other. But you started. You entered into a conflict. Mr. President, you might follow the fate of your father. And what I was afraid of, it will divide the nation. It will be a bloody time.
That statement is from last week. Duterte is taking aim at Marcos Jr., the current president of the Philippines. Marcos Jr. Until recently, Duterte and Marcos Jr. were allies. In fact, Duterte's daughter Sarah is the current vice president of the Philippines. She works with Marcos Jr. She is his deputy. But her father is now an adversary of the president. Why? For power. That's what it boils down to. It's a fight for power. And this is how it began. Marcos Jr. wants to change the constitution. There is speculation that he may tinker with the presidential term limits. Here's what the current constitution says. You can remain president for only one term. That's 6 years. You cannot return after that, not even after a gap. You can be president only once. Apparently, Marcos Jr. wants to change that. Or so Duterte says. And if that happens, it will be a controversial step, especially given the history of this country. Marcos Jr. is the son of Ferdinand Marcos, the infamous director of the Philippines. He remained in power for 2 decades. His reign lasted till the 1980s. He was ousted after a revolt, a massive uprising against the regime. It led to revisions in the constitution. And term limits were set. You could be the president only for 1 term. This was designed to keep dictators like Marcos Sr. away. But now his son may want to do away with these limits. He's not saying it in so many words, but he's not addressing the controversy either. He's not denying it. All that the president has said is this. He wants to uplift the economy, and the current constitution does not allow it. It does not allow reform, which is why he wants certain amendments. And such statements are only adding to the anxiety. The president says he wants to relax some economic provisions, and the current constitution of the Philippines restricts foreign investment. Marcos Jr. wants to lift these curbs to get more FDI or foreign direct investment into the Philippines. In fact, I have a quote from him. This is what he says. The 1987 Constitution was not written for a globalized world, and that's where we are now. We have to adjust so we can increase economic activity in the Philippines. That's all he's saying for now. But in the past, he has backed the idea of wider reforms. And that's what Duterte says he's worried about. So he's openly fighting the president, calling him a drug addict and hurling abuses at him.
Reject. Protect the Constitution. I'm calling now the armed forces and police. Don't forget our civilians. Don't think of one family only. Son of
Last week, he proposed something radical. Duterte wants to break up his country. His hometown is an island called Mindanao. It is in southern Philippines. Duterte said a signature campaign is underway in Mindanao. Voters are being asked if the island should be split from the Philippines. Now, these are radical and disturbing developments. And what is Manila's reaction? It may send in the military. The country's national security advisor has spoken. He says, and I'm quoting, any attempt to secede will be met by the government with resolute force. The official did not name former President Duterte, but the warning was clearly meant for him. And this is serious. Also because of Mindanao's volatile past. In the Philippines, you see, most citizens are Catholics. But Mindanao has a significant Muslim population, and this island has witnessed decades of fighting. Since the 1960s, more than 120,000 people have died here, mainly due to separatism. In 2017, a martial law was imposed here, and this was after violent clashes had erupted between Islamic separatists and the Philippine army. The island has been a hotbed of ISIS activity too. The movement was violently crushed by Duterte himself, when he was president. So by proposing to split the country in Mindanao, Duterte is playing with fire. These are the makings of turbulent times for the Philippines.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.